Welcome to another Monday Blitz. Today we continue in our exploration of 1 Samuel. And I don't know if you have noticed, but as I've been reading through 1 Samuel, wow, the struggle of understanding David and his relationship with God is so challenging for me. The story, we love the stories of David and Goliath, David tending the sheep, David being anointed king, David being the good guy. But then I get to these chapters like 1 Samuel 27, and the entire story, the entire script is something that is just ugly. David is just going around with this band of soldiers killing people off, just mass murder, men, women, children. He just destroys communities, neighborhoods, family groups. And for what? What is he gaining? What is his goal? And it's hard to wrap my mind around how this is the man after God's own heart, this champion that we have made, and yet here he is in his limited understanding of what God has in mind for him, and he's going around in violent action, taking justice, so to speak, into his own hands to eliminate people he feels need to be eliminated. And so as I have been wrestling with these passages, it reminds me of how sometimes we put people on pedestals. We think of them as super holy. Maybe it's a pastor or an evangelist that we have listened to for years, and we think they can do no wrong. And yet here we see a story of David that just is hard to read. It's painful to read, as David clearly, there is no mention of God directing this action by David. Rather, David has just thought through and reasoned out that this makes sense for him to do this. And that caused me to ponder my own life. Are there things I do? Obviously, I don't think I'm going out trying to kill people. But are there things in my life that I reason through and say, this is my plan, this makes sense, this would be what God would have me do because it makes sense to my mind? And do I perhaps, and I know I do sometimes, fail to ask God if this is what he would have me do? It makes sense to me, my rational reasoning, my human thinking, it makes sense to do things. But are those the things that God is asking me to do? I don't see anywhere in 1 Samuel 27 where God asked David to kill these people off. And yet David thought this made sense. And it's so easy for us to think that what we're doing makes sense, and because it makes sense, it's God's plan. So I'm pondering, and I hope you ponder also, making sure that we are following God's plan for our lives and not just something that makes sense to our human thinking. I'm sure as David looked back at it years later, he had to wonder why he chose some of the actions and behaviors he chose to do. And I know we will often look back and go, why did I choose what I chose? But maybe, just maybe, we can also look, and as we look back at our lives and go, look where God led, and we chose to let God lead, and we followed God's plan for our lives. May that be what we seek today and going forward. May we seek to follow God's plan, God's purpose in our lives. Until next time.